What's poppin', what's cracking, what's going on, what's up? Wasn't actually planning on making this video. I had a whole nother Abin Preach Amazon related video planned talking shit about DJ Academics because I think he's kind of dumb. But instead, I decided let me react to the most recent video. I'm not gonna like react on stream to it because I talk a whole lot, but it's just a few points about their envying religious people, which parts of it I can like actually relate to. So I'll probably start with what I relate to about it and then what I disagree about it. Again, the disagreeing is more specific on points than the relating because like they're basically talking about how they view. So when I've been like, for one, they're both considerably older than me. They got more experience, so you probably can a lot of you might just discount whatever I say as a result of just being 25 and just being angry at God or whatever. But I've been atheist since I was 14. When most atheists become atheists because they're in the rebellious stage or whatever. But I was like, it wasn't like an anger for me. Like it was like an angry thing. It wasn't like bad things happened to me, so I don't know God would let this take place type of thing. In fact, Jesus Christ, children are so fucking annoying. Anyway. It wasn't like I had some friends who were also atheists around the same high schoolish era, and a lot of them it was for some bad things happened. It made them think there's no way God would let this happen. And in my mind back then, it was just like, well, there seems to be some reason. It was that was like 15, 14. Like, seems like bad things happening seems to be like a part of like at least the Bible. If like they're going by the Bible, like bad things are gonna happen to you. At least what I remember of stories and like. Story of Cain, Abel, Job, even every significant story, bad shit just kept happening, especially when you're young too. I'm just like bad things happen when you're young. Like that's in like your growth and then your trial and then your test. And like even as an atheist, I was like, okay, you had personal bad experience. Doesn't seem like that good of a reason to be an atheist. So I was like, yeah, that should be ignored. But I remember having conversations with my mom, like even though I'm an atheist, I remember saying, I'm like, I'd probably want to institute like lots of churches or whatnot. Like churches should be pretty prevalent. So I'm like, okay, well, it seems to be a good motivating factor to get people to do decent things. It seems like religion seems to have beneficial outcomes. That used to be a thought of mine. Also, the ignorance is bliss thing. I know they weren't saying like, you're just not just ignorant if you're religious. I also don't like to say you're ignorant if you're religious, just because I always say there's people who are so much smarter than me that are religious and devout religious Christians. Like they're like actual scientists, physicists who are still Christians. It's not like being dumb makes you religious and being smart doesn't make you an atheist. I know a lot of dumb fucking atheists, like absolute idiots. I'm like, oh, that's why you think that? As it makes you should still be religious if that's why you think God doesn't exist. But all this is to say, like for one, as a structural thing, it seems good for especially being black and like in communities where violence happens a lot. Like religion seems to be the only thing like a slight influence that might be like, hey, maybe don't rob or beat the shit out of somebody. Isn't hell bad or isn't hell scary? But also like having the ability to rely on something. Seems like there's an emptiness that people get to fill with the idea of God or whatnot. Like there's somebody that you can always talk to or rely on. I'm like, that seems to make sense for people. Like if you're depressed, like you can have someone that's like, okay, well there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. Like you have a reason to believe that because your book said so. You have, community, like we just said, communities like what do, like people get together. Like I get together with the same group of guys to play. Like I'll get different groups to play basketball and stuff. So community for me is like if my friends can find a way to like find me, or if I meet up to play basketball with a group of individuals. But other than that, my schedule is like I'm gonna work, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do, prioritize, and then my breaks are gonna happen randomly. It's not like a scheduled community thing that I'm gonna do ever. But whenever I do hang out with my friends, it's a blast. So Sunday, a psychological mandatory, because it's not really mandatory, but you do think if you don't do it, you go to hell, so it's like kind of mandatory. Time where you get to hang out with your friends and then get all the benefits of community. That does make sense. Like it's reasonable to like okay, if you guys are always going to meet up with the same, you're like-minded individuals, you all have the same goal, you all have the same, like you're here with the idea of trying to help people. Like in an ideal world, this is actually a great thing. Like, hence why younger me, around 16ish, 15, was like, I think more church, more religious people is better. Especially thinking like I have I think it's not necessarily contradictory views. At least at the time, I thought it was contradictory. I'm like, well, I have no I don't believe in objective morality or whatever. I'm like, I just want to do good things because I personally like doing good things. But without any rule forcing people to do good things, I don't trust that other people would continue to do so, which I thought I had when I was younger, especially surrounded by religious people who kept reinforcing that idea. Notice I keep saying when I was younger because at this about 5.5 minute mark is when I'm like, okay, that's when I realized I think all this is wrong. I don't believe any of those same ideas anymore. And maybe I changed my mind again. That seems unlikely. Here's another significant point. When Preach said the suicidality rate, which is a weird way to say it, suicide rate higher among non-religious people than religious people. It's interesting when even quoting something like that. I mean, the highest rate of suicide, of non-religious people committing suicide, would be non-religious people in religious families. Your removal from your family is the most significant factor in whether you're a non-religious person committing suicide or not. Now, obviously, there are many people that don't commit suicide purely because of their religion. My mother stating being one of them, where it's like, if it wasn't for the idea of going to hell, she'd have done it already. So personally, that idea means a lot to me. And as an atheist, it's hard to make arguments against someone ending their lives. And it's like, okay, we're suffering right now, you can stop suffering. Hard to make significant arguments against that. Because it's all about other people. You have to appeal to other people. You have to argue that life can get better. You have to find different ways where, if you're religious, you can dodge all of that work. It's like, okay, well, you're suffering now. It's worse if you kill yourself. You don't have to think. There's no work involved. You get to do the easy argument out if you're trying to use that as a motivating factor. Now, this doesn't fix your problems. Doesn't help your life. In fact, because the answer is so easy, you actually have to do nothing to make that person's life better. The people that don't commit, that are equally depressed, that are religious, aren't necessarily living better lives. They just know that they think that if they kill themselves, they'll live in the worst possible, they'll die the worst possible death eternally, suffering endlessly. And again, I don't think that's true. So I don't think that's even a better outcome, right? That's not the best possible scenario. So people condemning themselves to a horrible existence because if they do it on themselves, maybe they improve their lives by some other means. It's like, well, I better find some way to fix this, otherwise things are going to get exponentially worse. That's rough. So it's a different argument because, again, it's like this is a different group of people. Okay, well, now do we actually have to fix it? Also, talking about people always being there for you. Someone in the comments mentioned something about someone got sick and the whole church showed up. I have anecdotal stories of people showing up, but only virtue signaling. Do you think leftist virtue signaling is bad? Religious virtue signaling is crazy. They go because it's just so loud. They go because they're supposed to. What you're supposed to do is support members of the church. In fact, I've seen many instances where there's a disappointment. They're coming here to remind you of you're supposed to have your devout religious, actions need to happen even when you're going through a hard time, even when you're going through a divorce, even when you're going through breaking up, you're out of school or whatnot. Matter of fact, in broke churches that I used to go to, I'm black, we go to some broke-ass Baptist churches too. Even when people are at their poorest, there's still expectations of donations. Especially evangelical churches, there's the demand for money under the guise that God wants you to give to Him, even though you're giving to a church or whatnot. Religion ends up being a cover for bad people to do horrible things to people who won't leave. If I say you should stop going to this church, he's trying to take advantage of you. It's like, well, I'm the atheist trying to prove that church is evil, even though no, this dude's just screwing me over. He's just a corrupt businessman, but he's using a book that he knows better than I do to try and make arguments to people that trust that book over logic and reasoning. Even if it makes you feel better, when there are situations where someone's being screwed over, your commitment to your religion prevents you from being able to see situations objectively. And that is more concerning to me than the benefit of being community. You can create some sort of communal environment for yourself. It's harder to do so. It is harder, right? You're not saying that. It's hard to find your own community, create your own schedule. That's difficult. But do I think the benefit of people thinking they need to do this or they go to hell is better than is worth the sacrifice to people actually living a life that it's actually in their best interest, because the person who leads their decision making over everybody else is some religious dude. Well, some dude who pretends to be religious. There's a lot of not really religious people running churches or whatnot. Like what's required for being a financially successful pastor is charisma and business sense, not being a devout Christian. Knowing the Bible is pretty important, but not the most important. It's troubling. Like, my mom's super religious, like what I mentioned earlier. She doesn't, well, I don't know if she goes now, but she scarcely goes to church because churches have been horrible to her. Now, again, that's anecdotal. I haven't had personal bad experiences in churches. I mean, for me, it was pretty chill. Like, I haven't had some pastor do something bad to me. Like, again, I've never had, like, the experience that religious people tend to think makes atheist, bad experience turns bad. I'm like, no, it just logically doesn't make sense to me. When I say logically doesn't make sense to me, what I mean is it doesn't make sense. But it makes sense to a lot of other people. So, though I haven't ever been shown a way that it can make sense without people appealing to, like, special pleading, some version of, well, it's just arguments that include special pleading in some point, but that's not what this is about. This is about where I don't think it's worth it. Now, that's the other part. Also, other varying religions have varying rules that don't make sense. Like, again, generally we adjust religion's rules are often adjusted to the societal norms. I mean, in the past, religion was used to justify slavery, and it was used to justify why we shouldn't have slavery. I mean, the same book shouldn't have been able to be used to justify two contradictory points. If it is, then it's not really justifying anything, it's just the people making their own claims. The book seems relevant. I mean, the book, at least the King James Version of the Bible, which seems to be the most common used one, at 6 different points explicitly says that being homosexual is either abhorrent, a sin, an abomination, or whatnot. Like, it's not even just like a one mistranslated passage. It's like, I used to say, like, I was young to be like, yeah, but the Cain and Abel story is more about raping an angel more than it was about, homosexuality. But there are multiple other passages that just explicitly saying homosexuality is bad. I mean, there are people that are just born a way that are just simply going to be condemned by nature of their existence. Or maybe you go to Mormonism, black people are like, we're someone who were cursed, like where our skin is this color because of the curse or whatnot, they're Mormon or whatnot. If you go to some other weirder fucking religions, like Scientology or whatnot, there's some weird race, like not race realism, some other race bullshit that people will just believe as a consequence of, like, the book says it is so. And because the book makes me have purpose and makes my life have meaning, that has more value than logic and other people's value or meaning. Like, the amount of people that I've heard say that you can choose whether you're gay or not, because if they can't choose, then they have to square a circle with their Bible that they can't square. There's too many issues with said book. I mean, multiple religious books promising the same Holy Land to the Jews in the Islamic people or whatnot. Like, this same, like, I remember younger me was saying, like, wait, so you said this land was promised to you in Palestine? You said this land was promised to you. I'm like, but either everybody was supposed to have the same land, or your book's probably just wrong, right? I mean, wars caused by religion in the past, definitely more significant. The Crusades which took place or in the past, like, I don't think we're gonna have religious crusades, at least Christian ones. For again, who's to say? If we have another fucking, what's the show called? Handmaid's Tale type bullshit. There are too many negative consequences to justify religion being even useful. I'd argue. I mean, it's useful, right, for certain people, but not if you're gay, not if you're trans, depending on the religion, not if you're black. Also depending on how silly you're following religion, not if you're female. I mean, is it that useful when what we gain from it is community, schedules and structure, and friends, right? I mean, friends, community. Like, these are things you can get some other way. It's just harder. But the things that you sacrifice, people who are explicitly pro-life because of the religious reasons, even though it has a direct negative impact, especially on minority communities, to get rid of abortions and whatnot. Alright. So, that's pretty much all. I imagine that we're gonna have quite a few people arguing for religion and the benefits of it, or how I'm wrong about my specific claims about my nations and whatnot. But Neatbo, wrap it up. Again, if you want to know why I'm so adamantly against negative consequences that are hard, you can't argue against people because of their religious attitudes, and again, just don't think it's true. The science doesn't. The science seamlessly cannot fit with religious arguments unless you're going specifically in social context. Oh well, that's it. Like what I saw, leave a like, do a subscribe, do a crime. Just kidding, don't do a crime. I'm out.